So in terms of FY21, we did get some good news, and the good news is that our state aid is going to be level funded in terms of the two major categories, Chapter 70 and unrestricted aid, which is what used to be called the lottery money, because that's where it comes from. So we were working off of, Rick, Brad Brothers, Scott Neef, and I had a couple of meetings to kind of project where we're going to be for FY21 and to prepare for the special town meeting in the fall. And initially, we were projecting a 7.5% cut to local receipts and a 10% cut to state aid. So the 10% cut we don't need to worry about. However, our charter fund, our assessment is probably going to correspondingly go up. So although, because we were looking at like a $900,000 cut to state aid, and although we don't have to worry about that, we were looking at another $100,000 assessment in charter schools, because Brad had said that charter school enrollments are going up, and I think it's because they're allowing kids to go back to school full time. So a lot of parents are pulling their kids out and sending them to charter schools. But I think we still can expect a fairly decent 7.5% cut to local receipts, maybe maybe more. I'm not quite sure at this particular point. So like I said, we expect local receipts to be down. One of the other major areas is we will not be collecting trash revenue in FY21, which we had budgeted for, but there's not going to be a replacement for that. We had also, I think you saw on the town meeting floor, that we took the solar revenue and we're allocating it 3 different places. I don't think that, we're anticipating a town meeting in the fall anyway, but I do not think that we're going to be collecting as much in the solar revenue as we had expected. There are 2 solar projects in town where I think the developer was a bit confused as to how the 61A would work. They thought that they have elevated solar fields, and they were under the impression that if you had elevated solar arrays and the bogs could continue to be farmed, that the land could remain in 61A. And we have researched this every which way with the Department of Revenue, with our legal counsel, every which way with our consultant, and it has to come out of 61A, so they're not moving forward with 2 projects.
So the dual use that we were led to believe could be solar producing and then maintain the bogs or maintain growth underneath the solar panels for that dual use purpose still comes out of 61A?
Right now it does. So here's where, and I think it may change in the future.
So I don't think anybody was aware of that. That's the reason why everybody was looking at the dual use.
Right, and I think that, well, I think that there may be legislation at some point. There was legislation on the table, which the Board of Selectmen had taken a vote to support, but it did not pass. So right now, where we stand is that it comes out of 61A. And I think that there was a very large discrepancy between what was known as the SMART project that was supposed to encourage these type of projects and what the Department of Revenue's guidance is. I mean, they're conflicting. And I think it's creating a lot of confusion for a lot of people right now.
Well, that was the whole selling point to the dual use. And the whole reason for putting the panels up so high off the ground, so you could still use the land underneath it.
So the Department of Revenue is saying there can be only one primary use to the property, and that this particular type of farming hasn't been tested yet. And I think that, like I said, I think it's going to change, but as of right now, it hasn't. And what my discussions with this developer were, we have to test this through the Department of Revenue, because I could tell him today, that's just fine, the Board of Assessors can take a vote, and then we drop a contract, and then when the Department of Revenue comes down to review our valuations and looks at that and says, no, that's taxable, then we would renege on a contract, and that would be much worse. Because I checked with every single person at the Department of Revenue that would be involved with this, and every single answer was the same.
And council says the same thing?
Council said the same thing and said, go with what the Department of Revenue is telling you.
Well,
because what happens is if they said that's taxable, they're not certifying our tax rate recap.
That's a big deal.
That is a big deal, yeah. I guess to touch quickly on, because the other aspect of all of this too is free cash. The way free cash is calculated is the surplus of your revenues at the end of the year, the expenditure closeouts at the end of the year, minus your receivables. So if our revenues are down, expenditures could be fine, but if our revenues are down and our receivables are way up, the free cash number that we've seen in the past is not going to be there. So that's also something that we need to keep in mind, because we do have several items that come out of free cash every year that are recurring. So there's not going to be a whole lot of wiggle room this year.
Okay. But
And-
we're not, the sky isn't falling quite as much as we thought it was going to be falling, am I correct?
Sky's not falling, but here, I mean, because I think some of this was just a logjam or it was a temporary situation, because that calculation of free cash, including receivables, we got really jammed up with that moratorium on penalties, interest, and people just paying late. So that, I mean, the treasurer collector didn't move properties into tax title, because again, we were looking out for residents. We didn't want to tell people, oh, by the way, we know there's a pandemic, we know people are losing their jobs, and we're going to put your property into tax title. We were holding off on that. So by having all of those pieces at play, it kind of really hurt us at June 30th. So I mean, the pandemic really kicked in March. We had 3 months, and so that it's June 30th. So to answer your question, is the sky falling as much? I don't think so, but we're still paying we're kind of stuck from a lot of decisions that were made at that particular point. It's going to have financial ramifications.
And as of July 1, the no penalties and interest was off, right?
No, actually, Kathy waited a while. We wanted to see what other communities were doing, because again, we don't want to be the ones who are
Right.
asking for this during a very difficult time. So I'm not sure when she did it. I want to say it was end of July, beginning of August. And a lot of communities had already started collecting those demands. And just to touch upon that as well, I think that there was a misunderstanding of what had occurred with that, because when we did issue the demands, it was for, I think, 2 motor vehicle excise commitments in the real estate and personal property. So those demands went out all at the same time. And last Monday, we had a lot of people coming in who were saying that they didn't get their tax bills, and they were very upset about it. We can prove that tax bills were issued in every one of these instances, and we could show that the vendor that we use, which is a standard practice for municipalities, is that you have a vendor to print and mail your tax bills. That the vendor printed the bills and that he signed an affidavit of mailing. So we've done our due diligence to prove that all of that occurred, but apparently there was some talk on social media that we deliberately didn't issue the tax bills, or there was a lot of chatter out there. And I just want to say that from our end, we did take it seriously. We did research it. We did see that all of that occurred. We understand that people are very upset right now, but it was a lot last week. It was a lot. People were very upset. But I think that one thing that could maybe be looked at too is, we know there's some issues with the Postal Service, so I think it'd be probably more likely to look at that as the reason why people didn't get their bills, rather than us not mailing them. And then I think you wanted to touch upon expenditures. I mean, right now the expenditures, they are what they are. There's not any crazy spending, but we do technically have a spending freeze in place. But because we don't know how bad this is, it's one of those things that you don't want to stop projects from progressing. We didn't want to stop the playground from progressing. We didn't want to do any of that till we know how bad things were, or the police station. All of those kind of projects are still going. And I think if we start to see that revenues are dipping further and further in Q1, then the spending freeze will become tighter and tighter. But we have to kind of see where this plays out a little bit more.
Okay. Anybody? Really? Oh, you're getting off easy.
Okay,
I think that's great. Thank you very much.
no problem.
We look forward to a similar update at the next round, at the next meeting.
I think probably the best time to have the discussion might be around the end of Q1, at the end of September,
Okay.
because then you'll see like a full quarter's worth.
So if we plan on the next meeting for something toward the end of September, we could have that would work for you?
The only reason why I say that is because you wouldn't have the full amount of September yet, and we don't usually post till the middle of October.
Yeah, but you'd have an idea of where we're at.
I could give you an idea, yeah.
I think that's all we're concerned about, is just the forecast.
Well, I
Whether it
think-
rains or not is
Yeah, and I think we're looking at an October town meeting, because Brad, Scott, Rick, and I had a meeting Friday to kind of look at what we need to do with the budget for FY21 and what adjustments will need to be made at town meeting. So, yeah. Okay,
I appreciate it.
no problem.
Discussion of the grant program. We put this off and off and off since last spring, actually, I think last fall. And the highlighted portion in your packet is the changes that I jotted down, obviously subject to, you know, your thoughts and process. We had some, I thought, difficulties in establishing the dates. So we thought it should begin this way for the following year. Now, we haven't done any for this year. We do have a couple of pending applications for this year. I've notified both applicants, Shane Gives Thanks and the Women's Health, Imperative, that until the spend-in freeze is lifted, obviously, since we don't know the revenue forecasts, we're going to sit tight, and they both understood. So this is just proposals that I thought needed to be done. Feel free to change them, feel free to comment on them, tell me what you think. The memorandum of agreement, there was never a place for the approval. We never had that. So it was like, you know, okay, you're all set, thanks for coming in, send us a bill, and there was no place to sign off on anything. So I added that block, and then on the very front cover of the page, merely gave the dates. So, everybody's okay with that? We'll take a motion, we can make that up.
I make a motion to amend the grant program as written. Second.
Motion made and seconded to amend the grant program with the changes. Any comments, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. I'll make the changes and I'll post a new application on the website. Finance Committee bylaw. Everybody knows what we're talking about here. This has been brought up. Several of us sit on other committees and boards, obviously. I sit on the Zoning Board of Appeals and I sit on the Conservation Commission. I don't know, and nobody can tell me why this also says any registered voter eligible for appointment to the Finance Committee or Council on Aging. We don't know how that got stuck in there, what that has to do with really anything, but it's there. It's been determined by Town Council, for those that don't know. He's in agreement that apparently his interpretation is any member of any board or committee or commission in the town that's established by law, whether that's a town bylaw, a state law, or a federal law, is in fact a town official. I don't take it quite that literally, but okay. And if that is the case, then that would pretty much exclude the FinCom from being on any other board, committee, or commission except as he brought out, a bylaw review committee or an ad hoc committee. But any other committee, you'd be ineligible for. I say this because I know that, Marie, you're an elected member of the trustees for the library. So I'm not sure if this means you need to pick one,
Oh, you pick, yeah.
or if you want to stay on FinCom, you have to resign. Obviously, this will be addressed, I would imagine, at fall town meeting. I think what they're going to do is present a bylaw. I would like to see a bylaw. If we're going to define it, then let's define it. Let's make it similar to the Capital Outlay Committee's bylaw, which simply says, no member of the Capital Outlay Committee may be a member of any other board, committee, or commission, period. Now it makes it easy to understand, doesn't get all convoluted in whether you are a officer of the town or not. So At this point in time, everything is staying status quo. This bylaw was written 25-plus years ago. It's never been an issue. The chairman of the select board made mention at the meeting that she would see this as preventing a conflict of interest. I offered a point of information. She didn't want to hear it, so I'll make the point of information for this committee. We have, Kate's husband is now a special police officer as well as an EMS part-time, technically an employee. Anything to do with, as been in the past, with the police department or the EMS, Kate has abstained from.
Also,
Beth-
Colony.
Sorry?
Colony, where he's on the
Oh,
video.
and Old Colony. Beth's husband is a call firefighter in Carver. You'll notice that all of the discussions since Beth's been on this committee, from anything to do with the fire department, including the PPE gear, she abstained from the vote. If there were to be a Conservation Commission or a Zoning Board of Appeals issue that required a budget, I would abstain from the vote. So we self-police. So I don't think that that's the issue at all. Marie?
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
I'm a library trustee, I'm also a poll worker. But I know at least both of those have abstained. So that's to your
Right.
point about what you're talking about.
Exactly. So I guess I took it maybe that it was attacking some integrity within the committee. We have always self-policed. Anyone that ever had any doubt has always abstained from a vote or recused themselves from even the discussion. I would suggest that we continue to do that until this is either decided at town meeting, or if this bylaw is to be adhered to, etched in stone, then I would assume that this will run until the end of appointed terms, and at that time, you'll be making decisions as to whether you want to stay on FinCom or you want to get off of FinCom and do whatever else you're doing. So those are my only comments about that. Anybody else?
The Housing Authority, which primarily answers to the state,
That's
here.
correct, and you're off the hook.
Okay, I was trying to figure out.
Yeah,
whether
actually,
that
I
was
spoke to
working.
Greg about that, and he said because that is not a town, and you're off the hook, because the trash district is not established by a town bylaw. It's a three-town consortium. The Housing Authority is a state thing, so that eliminates either one of you from having this be the conflict. So, you two are off the hook.
I didn't know.
You're wrong. We thrive on it sometimes.
What changes would they make at the town meeting would that be something, who would be making those changes?
I would expect that the rewriters of the town bylaws, which is, the crusade that some members of the select board are on, I'm sure that they'll come up with some wording that'll make that work. That'd be my guess.
If you what's the word?
Recuse.
Recuse yourself from a vote that has to do with that, and that basically covering.
Yeah, but what they're saying is that the way this reads now is you can't even be a member of FinCom.
Yeah.
So Greg left it in the hands of the town administrator. The town administrator says if it ain't broke, don't fix it, and he can't see any reason why we need to go and do something with it. So, I don't know. But I just wanted this committee to be aware of the fact, I know Kate was in the room that night at the meeting also, and this seems to be the first of perhaps many, I don't know. This happened to be the first one they pulled out of their hat for reasons unknown. So,
But I mean, we've always done a good job of policing ourselves.
we have.
There's no reason I have to recuse myself when it comes to anything with the police or EMS or Old Colony, but I do so that it's just very clear that there's no, we're above board. And, same with Beth when it comes to the fire department. We've always done that. So I do, find it slightly insulting.
And it's important to understand that by law, a conflict of interest, if we're taking up a vote tonight concerning, and I'll throw myself in the mix, the Conservation Commission, and I divulged to this group that I'm a member of the Conservation Commission, but that I feel that I can make I can still vote non-prejudicial. And this committee feels, they take my word for it. They say, okay, fine. I've done this on conservation, by the way. There's no law that says you have to recuse. You have to divulge. So Beth would have to say, you know, my husband is a firefighter, but I think I can still vote on this and be objective. Now it's up to this committee to decide, you know, yeah, we agree with you, or no, we don't agree with you. And frankly, whether we agree or not, she still has the final say, saying, I don't have to recuse myself. It merely has to be divulged. So that's been the case with conservation, dealing with the Spring Street project for SLT Construction. I contract work for them, and I made the announcement. They all know it, and I said I can vote on this with, you know, no prejudice and objectively, and they had no problem with it. So the big thing is the transparency. And everybody knows that everybody on this committee, including myself, this is the whole thing with us, is transparency. Nothing gets hidden. So that's where that's coming from.
Is the question at hand essentially whether, let's just, in your case, as a member of the Zoning Board of Appeals and/or a member of the Conservation Commission, that you are technically a town officer?
If you listen to Greg Corbo's explanation, we are all town officers.
So, but as a member of Finance Committee, as a member of the Finance Committee, we are town officers. But that, being on the Finance Committee does not exclude you from being a part of town, the way I read it. And I'm not here to argue the legal.
Well, I think what they're trying to say is what came first, the chicken or the egg.
I'm just, as I sit here and read it, and I would love to be able to have dialogue with town council. We weren't given that opportunity at the select board meeting. I would love to have dialogue with town council to better understand the language. And I am not a lawyer. I did not go to law school. I don't pretend to be one. It says that you're not eligible for appointment to the FinCom. You are eligible to be appointed to the FinCom if you're a registered voter, except those that are town officers, town employees, or people holding a position of financial responsibility. Right. So being a part of FinCom does not exclude you from being on FinCom. So therefore, your role on these other committees would be the exclusionary criteria for you to be on FinCom.
Provided you were on the other committees first. What if you were put on those other committees after you were a member of FinCom?
Correct. And/or reappointed to one of those committees after you were the chair of FinCom, as was the case about a month ago.
So this is why this particular bylaw is, I don't think that this is the intent of that bylaw. I think this goes back to the same bylaws that came in that, you know, the selectmen can't be employees and
part of the reason why I bring it up is the bylaw itself then subsequent to that sentence spells out that in the instance where you are a member of FinCom and on a special town committee, you're not authorized to vote, which means you have to recuse yourself from those votes on any matter pertaining to the duties of the special committee. So theoretically, you'd have to recuse yourself from a budget vote for Concom or Zoning Board of Appeals.
Right.
But
which is what we've always done.
yeah, it just sort of, to me, the language, and again, I'm not a lawyer, but to me, the language sort of seems to contradict itself, where it says if you are on FinCom and one of these special town committees, you're not authorized to vote on matters that pertain to the special committee.
Right.
But it doesn't say that, it doesn't specifically spell out that you are a town officer if you're on zoning board or a Concom, and that's just your example. And it would seem you would have to be considered a town officer in order to be excluded or no longer eligible to be on FinCom.
Right.
It's confusing. I can understand why, if we were talking about, it's confusing. You're not really in a position, and the other question I would have is are we in a position of financial responsibility as members of this committee where it's not our budget? We do not.
Does anybody have the checkbook for the town? I don't have it. Do you have it?
But
Meg, have you got it?
we make recommendations for the budget to the select board, but it's the select board's budget, and the select board presents that budget to town meeting. So we're not really in a position of authority outside of the reserve fund and allocation of the reserve fund.
But the reserve fund is granted to us by town meeting for us to oversee. That's not something that we just have carte blanche over.
Correct, and I would think, I know my own personal opinion and why I abstained from the vote a few meetings ago as it relates to the playground project on the King property, is because of my involvement with the Youth Baseball League and the benefit of that project to the Youth Baseball League. I abstained from the vote. So in the instances where votes do come up, where we do have control of reserve funds, and those reserve funds are used on projects or committees or boards that we're otherwise a part of, we can abstain from those votes like I did.
And that's what we do.
So those are my sort of high-level concerns about the way the bylaw reads, and I would love to see a clarification in the language at town meeting to make it more crystal clear, but, or some dialogue with town council to better understand.
Well, I know that Greg did tell me, in a conversation right here at Town Hall, that there is no definition in the state and Mass General Law that defines what a town officer is. So my question becomes, if there's no definition, then how do you come up with this? You know, I would have always thought that an officer of the town would have been an elected select board member. They would be considered an officer of the town. I would not consider the chief of police, he's an employee. I wouldn't consider the finance director, she's an employee. So I don't consider her to be an officer of the town. Just because a cover page says, the officers of the boards and committees of the town of Carver welcome you to the town meeting, it's a play on words. It doesn't have the meaning behind it, because Greg could find nothing for it. But he did come out and say, it appears that any board, committee, or commission established by law kind of makes everybody the officer. So now, are we all officers of the town? And if we are all officers of the town, what authority do we have either individually or as a group? There's nothing we can vote on tonight that we can force this town to do. There's nothing we can vote on tonight that can force the select board to spend money. Short of a reserve fund transfer request that we approve, that the only thing the select board could do at that point is try to take it to a special town meeting to overturn it. Because town meeting's already given us the authority to spend them, like the grant program. They've given us up to $5,000 per applicant, and it's our choice as to vetting the applicants as to who gets what. Now, if they don't like that, then they can stop it through town meeting, because they giveth and they can taketh away, or they can bring it to the next town meeting and remove that authority completely. But, you know, we don't have even the power of the Capital Outlay Committee. We can approve the Capital Outlay Committee request, but we cannot initiate it. So I think that's the reason for the wording that was so stringent on the Capital Outlay Committee. And if we're going to establish that kind of a thing for FinCom, then that's exactly how that bylaw should read. That no member of the Finance Committee shall be a member of any other board, committee, or commission. Now, there's nothing interpretable in that statement. It's done. If they don't want to do that, then we should just scrap the whole thing and leave it to the conscience of the board and the oversight of the members of the committees to police themselves, which I think that everybody's going to do. If Adam came in and said, you know what, let's spend another $500,000 on the playground because it's a great idea and I want to enlarge my stature, then this board would talk him down off the ledge and say, this is not a good idea. Because it would seem self-serving, and I think that that's what the whole idea of policing within the committees is. Our own integrity and the fact that we don't do anything self-serving on this committee that I've ever seen in the whole time that I've been a member of this committee. It's always been for what's best for Carver. Bill?
Seems like the simplest thing would be, as you've done, recusing yourself from a vote. If it has any appearance of conflict of interest,
Sure.
if something came up with a trash district, then I would, if you're voting on it for some reason.
Well, there's a perfect example. If we came out and it was up to the Finance Committee to go along with the sticker fee, for instance. Let's say they come up with a new amount and it was going to be up to the FinCom, or they wanted the FinCom's vote to support it or not. I would expect you to abstain from that vote because you sit on that trash district. That would just be the right thing to do.
Yeah, if there's an apparent
Right.
conflict.
We try to avoid even the look of a conflict of interest, so. Anybody else? Okay, well, we beat that one up pretty good. Discussion on availability of funds for security cameras at the playground. I want to preface this by saying at the last meeting, when we did the transfer for the fencing and so forth, and it was brought to my attention that there are no cameras over there. And that didn't set well with me. We have kids playing at the playground. We have the boys and girls, men's and ladies, the bathrooms that are on a time lock. Those doors unlock automatically, they relock automatically, depending upon what time Dave Seatontoff has set it for. I'm assuming that's based on the schedules, but they're open all day long. To not have security back there makes no sense to me whatsoever. We're a sleepy little town, but we're not that sleepy. I think when the playground was beside the library, just by the fact that it was more to the street, maybe it was a little bit safer, if you will. Now it's tucked in the back. It's in a beautiful location, but it's a little more off the beaten path. You can't see what's going on from the street. I think for the safety of the kids that play, I think that for the safety of the equipment from vandalism, and I think that for the safety of the people using the bathrooms, I can't see a reason why we don't have a couple cameras sitting out there. So when I asked that question, I was told that it was never put in the budget. It was going to be added later on. And my attitude became, let's find out what we can do to make this happen. So I got a hold of Rick, who got a hold of Dave, who sent it over to Chris Mahoney, who's the IT guy. And while I don't want to see us reinvent the wheel, I'd like to know that, I'd like the Recreation Committee to be aware of the fact that we will do everything we possibly can do to make this happen, because we all think, and I'm willing to bet that you agree with this, you've got kids, you are out back all the time, Adam. I'm willing to bet that this committee will certainly stand behind trying to get this funded and get this put in place. I think it's smart. I think it's the right thing to do for Carver. I think it takes the town liability off the hook. And God forbid if it was ever my granddaughter playing out there.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
You know, I call them like I see them. And we are a great little town. Don't misunderstand me. But we're not living, you know, in Never Never Land either. So that's my take with it. So to the best of my knowledge, there is no budget. Chris Mahoney is investigating what's going to need to be done. He's going to get a bid or two from some people. Obviously, there'll be more coming. It's probably not going to happen because the fall is coming on quick. I would suggest everyone who brings their kids to the playground that they keep an eye on their kids in the meantime. I guess I'm more concerned, since the playground is new, I'm more concerned with vandalism after hours and stuff like that. We seem to be okay with that too, but I don't want to fix something that's been destroyed that's brand new because we didn't put a camera in. We had some problems with the excavator that was overparked beside the library during the demolition. And it cost the town a couple of bucks to replace some glass in a machine that kids vandalized in the night, and it was just out of sight of the cameras, conveniently. So that's where we're at with that. Please, if you hear anything, Mary, let us know. Keep us abreast of what's going on, and when we all get together and we come up with some plausible numbers and so forth and so on, we can crunch them and then go through the finance director, squeeze her a little bit, break her arm, bring a hammer, and then we'll try to get the transfer done for you to get that. I just think it's necessary.
We were kind of hoping that it could all go under when they're ordering, planning for the police station. You know, they just add a few more.
Probably a great idea.
And the wires.
Probably a great, I guess the issue was there's no connection out back, but it's right next to the EMS in the DPW building. I'm sure there's an internet connection in the DPW building or in the EMS.
There is one in the EMS.
Yeah, so I'm sure that there's a way to, you know, I sent a Cat5 cable up my driveway to the house from the garage, and, you know, aside from it being about 600 feet of cable, it works just fine, so, you know, it doesn't have to be, we're not reinventing the wheel here. So we're gonna do all we can to make sure that that happens for you. I think it's a great idea. I just think it's due diligence.
And I think it's good for the public too. I know that during the tenuous debate, when this was voted on, the proximity of the new playground to the street was a concern for a lot of people.
Yep.
One of the things that a lot of people cited as an objection to that location, because the old location and its proximity to the street was a much quote-unquote safer location for it, that was a concern, having it further back on the King property where it is, to having the playground there, because it was no longer close to the street. There was not the deterrent of its proximity to traffic. So I think this sort of closes the loop on that concern for a lot of folks that were worried about that when the location was chosen. I think it makes good sense, and as long as it's financially feasible to do so, we should prioritize it. That's my personal opinion.
I agree.
Small thing, I look at emails and between Rick and you said Chris Mahoney, and I said, and it says Stephen, so I don't know whether that makes a difference to,
It is Steve Mahoney, I'm sorry.
just to get that right.
That was a good catch.
Uh-huh.
That was a good catch.
Good catch.
Yeah, I didn't think it was Chris, but I couldn't think of whose name
No,
it
but
was.
you know what, and there was a guy that I knew for a long, long time, his name was Chris Mahoney, so I do that to Stephen all the time. I never knew a Meg, so I don't screw your name up, but for some reason, Chris Mahoney sticks in my, hi Chris, if you're watching. So yeah, it is Stephen Mahoney, I apologize.
And
Good catch, Bill.
I haven't looked at my emails in 2 weeks, so
I know
I
you
just
didn't-
happened to look at it tonight.
You didn't even know about the meeting until I told you.
I know, that's right, exactly.
He just got back from Maine,
I know.
up here, he's got a palace up in Maine, you know, it's like 700 acres and 42 rooms. He just comes down here and plays low-key. Keeps the rolls parked in the garage and
Spreading vicious rumors. I hammered every nail in that myself.
so just keep us informed, Mary, and let us know what your next step is. On a similar note, since Mary's here, Mark Townsend asked me about the COA, and this is not on the agenda, so I'm just going to throw it out there. We're not going to discuss it. And possibly doing something with tables and chairs so that they could have some kind of a gathering outside. And then I had suggested, why don't we do something with the tennis court? And then it was brought to my attention today that they would like to have, you know, they could have exercise, they could have line dancing, they could have pickleball, and make use of the tennis court. So I called Dave Siedentoff and I said, when you're down there today, what would be the big deal on removing the fence, the chain link fence from around the court, so that it's an open space? And he said he'd look into that. I volunteered some equipment to help out with that, and you know, anything that can get the Council on Aging and these senior citizens back with their friends, I'm all for. As far as this social distancing stuff, my attitude is, you know, they're all big boys and girls. And they've been around the block 3 or 4 times, and they know the risks, and they know whether they're willing to take those risks, and they don't need another babysitter. Least of all, anyone in the town of Carver should be babysitting them. That's just my personal take on it. You have a big grin on your face.
Yeah, I'm holding the application to CPC to redo that area.
Oh, nice. Leaving the fence?
Leaving the fence there.
Uh-oh.
Okay, but there may be enough property to expand an area. We've been approached first by Council on Aging people about redoing the tennis courts and really whose property is it and who knows. There are those who believe that Council on Aging is responsible for that. I don't know who put the tennis courts in 50 years ago. Nobody's touched them since. So they need some work.
Need a bulldozer, but that's another story.
Yeah, but so we then were approached, the recreation community, were approached by some people who run a who are from Carver and run a pickleball league currently in Raynham, generates a lot of income for the town of Raynham. And because they're Carver residents, they'd like to bring that money to Carver. And ironically, several different times over the last few months, different members of the committee have had that same kind of thought about how do we go about doing this. We originally thought the least expensive way to do it was to put additional lines on the high school tennis courts. That's not possible because NIAA rules state you can only have one set of lines. So we're going to leave that alone. And so I haven't taken all of the dimensions, but if we move the fence, one side of the fence a little bit, we can get 3 new tennis courts and 6 pickleball courts, which would provide some money for council on aging, perhaps some money for recreation. That money would be to be determined, but it would also be available for residents who are not in league, you know, either form a new league or pickup games or whatever. There's plenty of area for parking there,
There is.
and I don't think we need to put in a brand new fancy parking lot. I think we can get rid of some of the overgrown shrubs, etc.
Yep.
And I forget what else we were going to say about this. So, but if you have other thoughts, then.
No, actually, that would tie in well. I mean, just because it's a tennis court doesn't mean it can't be Tuesday morning line dancing.
Absolutely,
You know,
absolutely.
as long, I'm thinking it just needs to be a surface that's they can get to easily
Yes,
and gives them something to do. The seniors deserve a little bit more than I think we give them in this town.
totally agree. And recreation has been focused on kids.
Yeah,
And
Just older kids.
we're just going to bring up the age bracket a little bit.
I think that's what we should be doing. I really do. You know, you got to take into account we've all been impacted by this shutdown. I don't think anyone more so than senior citizens that are cooped up in their houses that perhaps don't drive or drive very little or don't drive at night, and they haven't been out with their friends and they haven't seen their friends except for talking to them on a telephone. And 3 months is a long time to go. And I think that everything else is opening up. And they didn't get to be, and I'll just say it, 80, 90 years old with no luck behind them. They had, you know, they've been around the block. They know right from wrong. So let's give them that respect and let them make their own decisions based on what they want to do. They're big boys and girls now. We are. You know, I had a big fight with somebody in Sherwin-Williams because we had a difference of opinion over a mask. And I didn't end up buying $450 worth of paint. I went to Benjamin Moore instead. I don't have to spend my money where I don't want to spend my money. So that's how this works.
I did have a conversation with Carol Julius, who is currently on vacation, but was fully in support of this plan and that we would work together with, you know, meeting with the Council on Aging and they would come to our meetings so that we try to address all the needs that go down the line. You know.
Also, since Meg is here, is there any chance that we could use some of the CARES money for, you've already been down that road too, haven't you?
Our town administrator should be receiving his email a few hours ago requesting CARES Act money. I don't know how much we have.
I do want to make a point there though, because the question that everyone keeps asking me is this eligible to be reimbursed by the CARES Act? And the town of Carver did get a decent chunk of money. It's $990,000.
Oh, we did?
That's for three rounds of funding. But of that, the last round is entirely earmarked for Council on Aging, veterans, libraries, and that's $109,000. So to get that back to my point, we've got the town and the school using this money, two very big entities, especially the school.
Right.
And although it's a good chunk of money, the question in everyone's mind, is this eligible? And what I'm gonna have to do is, I was just thinking that as we were sitting here, I gotta send out an email to everyone, because I talked about it with Rick and Brad on Friday, is we gotta get to a point that where we know where we've got projections, because if everyone's going, oh, this is money, this is money, this is money, this is money.
Right.
And then we're over $990,000 during a time when things are tight, that's not good. So I think that there's gonna have to be like a single line of communication and authorization of building expenses, so we don't exceed that threshold.
Okay.
I would tell you that it was Carol that suggested a request, and, you know, I'd like the whole 100,000, but we don't have to go there.
But you can do it with Carol, because, actually, you know, the veterans agent and Carol.
Yeah, she told me to request,
Yeah,
and I didn't put a dollar amount.
no, Mary, the email hasn't gone out to people yet, but I talked about it with Brad on Friday.
It would be eligible, is my point.
Yeah, because there's a lot of, in the tech expenses that we're doing the work from home technology, all that is adding up. So, yeah, we have a good chunk of money, but there's this part of me that's like, we gotta watch this.
I get it, I get it.
Everyone's going, oh, it's all good money, give us that money.
What's the condition of, and I played tennis there years ago. The
It's
surface of the
worse
course-
than when you were there.
Huh?
It's worse than when you were there.
But the surface seems to be pretty rough. I don't know what pickleball is, Is it cer- is
Pickleball
asphalt-
It's kind of like tennis. It's a similar. So the surface would be an asphalt surface.
It'd have to be
One-
redone.
but redone, because
There's trees growing up in the middle.
There are,
Makes for a bigger challenge, that's all.
yeah.
The fence,
Well, they could make it an obstacle tennis court.
the fence is probably the best, in the best condition, anything in the area.
Of course.
so it's taking the fence down, getting rid of the asphalt, planting grass there.
No,
No.
taking the fence down, taking the asphalt up and putting down new asphalt. Provided we can get some state funding, why not?
I mean,
And then
grass.
putting the fence back
grass-
up.
I mean, grass,
I'm not sure about the fence going back up, but maybe
It's tough to
maybe a
put
lower
fence, and
fence.
The ball just keeps going.
Well, I don't think I'd put up an 8-foot fence. There's a 6-foot fence there now, or an 8-foot fence there now, isn't it? Big, huge
Right, but
fence.
if it can be
Not a
salvaged
batting
and maybe
cage.
repaired, why go to the expense of putting a whole new one?
I know we got horseshoe pits and a bocce ball thing
Right.
that's over there too, right? That I don't think anyone's ever used. I don't think it's ever
it's
been.
of more value to have it as asphalt as opposed to a grass surface as far as
Yes.
activities go.
Are you gonna play
Yes.
tennis in grass?
Well, they do grass courts.
I'll have to talk to
Yeah?
Wimbledon, and see
Well,
what they do.
Grass courts?
Yes.
Yes,
Wimbledon's a grass court.
yes.
Shows you how much I play tennis.
A
Hey,
lot of maintenance though. I'm thinking of
A lot of
other
maintenance,
Yeah,
activities.
that's hard, much easier.
so then if you don't like tennis, you can sit and watch the grass grow?
Yes.
I gotcha.
It's actually about similar.
Okay. Just keep us informed, let us know what's going on, okay?
I will.
And if you don't, Adam will, because he lets us know all the good stuff that's happening. Thanks, Aaron.
Thank you.
All right, briefly, discussion on the legal bills that we had requested. Thank you very much, Beth. Beth put this report together this morning, and she also printed everybody's 48-page copy of all the bills with, I thought I was reading a government document with all the redactions in here. But in any case, apparently we're not trusted to see what's behind the black lines.
Yeah, so what I did is I went through it, just so you guys know, and I tried to categorize what I could off of the descriptions that were in 48 pages, and I just put them into these buckets, just so we had a little bit of an idea of what was going out, or at least going on here. But the lines that are blacked out, that's worth 23,000, so that's like 20% at least of all of these that we don't know.
You got miscellaneous HR, is that public records requests also, or you didn't break that out separate?
So I left it together, it's, let me see, it's a lot of, I'll give you an example of one. Yeah, like, one of them was like privilege fees, that was the only one for that, for $92.50, so I put that into miscellaneous.
Okay.
It was a lot of work that they did regarding court cases, HR things with the town administrator, or anything that didn't like fall into any of these categories.
Gotcha.
I do have a little spreadsheet, I can send it to everybody, going through it. Let's see if I can find it, I'm gonna send it this one. Like I put this one, exchange emails with police chief, 1850, I put that was miscellaneous, because I don't know what they were
Right.
talking about. There was things about dog licenses that I put into miscellaneous, public records. Another email to town administrator regarding executive session minutes. So it was anything that it just didn't have a place, I just put them in there. And then anything that I could really break out, I did. So RDA landfill, I broke out for $8,600. Town meeting, $7,300. There was a lot about Comcast or the CAC for $5,000. Solar was $4,000. COVID-19 was $3,300.
Can we get that back?
Again, it's that one pool of money, so I'm not sure that, and I guess we could probably submit that, but it's coming from a lot of places. We have unemployment bills that are still, they're gonna have to go in, health insurance bills that they're gonna have to go in, so we need to can we? Yes, we can. Is it eligible? Yes, it is. But we need to prioritize what we're going to see.
Okay. Okay.
A lot of the stuff was blacked out. A lot of the things that were blacked out around the time I could see the TA search, so I'm assuming that was probably more, but I couldn't view it. There was American Tower, which I think had to do with the fire department, maybe putting radios in. The town clerk's office was $1,500. Planning board was $1,200, and the King property was $725.
So our budget last year was 90,000 for this, and it ended up being 103,655, so we needed the 14,000 to make that.
It
It
was
was
110
more-
or 120 last
It-
year.
It was more. It says on. I added all these up.
We only get 103 here.
Yeah, I'm assuming there might have been journal entries going through there.
Yeah, total spent was 119,962
Yeah.
We
for
might,
fiscal year 2020.
I'd have to look at the journal ledger, 'cause I feel like we may have appropriated more than a budget transfer at some point during the year.
There was a, yeah, it
Usually
says,
the outline has excess money left.
the budget was 110 and we did a year-end transfer of 17.
Yeah, I added these like multiple times on my little orange. These only equal 103,000.
So 103.
110 then.
Budget of 110.
Yes.
Then there was a year-end transfer of 17, and the total spent in the fiscal year 2020 was 119,962. It points out that there was, the document I'm looking at just says that there was a unusually large amount of tax title fees, and also includes
We did have a foreclosure auction. at the
Yeah.
beginning of the
I
year.
saw that.
auction legal expenses. Total combined, that was about $13,000.
Might have put them into something.
I'm just wondering why we have all the bills that total 103,655, and we have 17,000, we still had to transfer off a $110,000 budget.
It depends on when you made the request, because we had to see that.
That bills come in after that?
That's what I was wondering, if we had posted some journal entries.
Well, I'm confused as to why that would matter, simply because we made the request for this after we did the transfer.
I mean, here is a charge from June 30th,
Yeah.
2020 for a telephone conference with lawyers for developers. So, I mean, if they're billing us for June 30th, that would have
Right.
been the end of the fiscal year.
That's right. We transferred this money on July 14th to make the account whole, and then made this request the following week. So
Yeah, the date is actually June.
the numbers had to have been in for you to know you needed the 17,000. So I'm just wondering what we're missing from the 103.6 to what we actually ended up having to spend.
When was our meeting?
I don't know if you guys.
July
something else I was
14th.
trying to
And that
add
actually
them
was
up.
the date that it was paid, July 15th.
I added
Dive
a coup-
in.
Yeah, I added them a couple of times and I kept coming up with 103.
Well, we
There
don't
were
doubt
some big months.
we don't doubt your calculations at all.
No, I'm sorry, 1 month was big, like.
This February of 2020 was $17,864, and January was $10,500. Those were the two largest.
Yeah.
There's a couple that were in $9,000, $8,000 range. But really, it was a very expensive second half of the fiscal year.
That would make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you look at the first 2 months, they're only worth like $3,000 and $4,000.
Correct, yep. It averages around 9,000 a month in legal expenses. The anomalies were July and August of last year and October, November of last year. The 2 months combined was only $5,300. But we saw January and February of this year where it was pretty high. That's preparation for town meeting, things like that, but also, executive session and discussions around the TA situation, so.
Meg, if you have a chance, you have a copy of this in the Beth's spreadsheet. Can you just compare it and just see if quickly you can make sense of it? I don't want you to go,
I'm
don't
not
go,
gonna be able to tell what the difference is between bills and stuff like that.
no, don't go
Well,
digging crazy.
You know what I think it is? I think is there another vendor that we didn't receive invoices on?
Oh, yeah, that's the tax title.
Is that like the Plymouth County deeds and the Lewis and Costello Condon?
Yeah, that's the tax title.
So we only got invoices for KP Law, and it looks like on the general ledger there are other vendors.
Yeah, there are.
So that could be where the difference, this is what we gave.
That's gonna be a chunk of money, 'cause we did have a tax
Okay.
foreclosure auction last fall.
And then you have the postal service in there too?
That would be for, deeds for Parkinson's tax.
Gatehouse Media.
That would be advertising for probably the auction, maybe
Yeah,
anything related to tax title requires advertising in the newspaper.
You're right, that says the auction for the legal notice in the Carver Reporter.
So what you got there is the majority of what made up that number.
All right.
Yeah, this is just invoices for KP.
Okay. I'm good.
That was the breakdown of it.
Everybody else good? Adam's still
And
reading.
I did, if you want mine, I kind of like wrote all over it, if you want to see some of the line items that fell into the buckets.
I'm good.
I'm good.
Everybody else? Good. Minutes of the July 13th. Everybody had a chance to look at these? Thanks, Meg. Go, Meg. Need a motion?
I make
I-
a motion to.
I'm sorry, we can discuss after the motion.
All right, I make a motion to approve the minutes as written.
Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded to approve the minutes as written. Any discussion?
I don't recall, but something looks odd.
ahead.
The balance of the budget from section E for the playground, town finance director on 7/9/2020 noted there was a balance from the budget of $18,011.06.
Uh-huh.
Seems high to me.
I think that's exactly what she said. Hey, Jim?
She did say that. No, I think she said $1,811.
That's exactly what I'm
Is
getting.
that right?
Yeah, well, that's what I wrote in minutes.
That's exactly what I'm getting.
1,811?
$11.06.
Yeah, because
Okay.
I know there was roughly $1,600 for
Actually,
the time
now
logs.
you say that,
and
you're
said there was
absolutely
like
right.
an extra $200 when everything was
Because
said and done.
Dave was saying he was gonna spend a couple grand on the locks, and he'd, it'd be very
Would offset,
minorly
would
short.
pretty much eat up the
Just
rest of the budget.
Just
Remove the zero.
Yeah.
$1,811.06, so just, get rid of the zero.
I'll change it now and just send it back to you.
No problem. I'll adjust it on my end, Kelly. And just, once we approve it, I'll post it. Any further discussion? Everything else okay? Need a motion to amend as corrected
I make a motion to
To-
amend as corrected to the balance from the budget of $1,811.06
for section E.
for section E.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve the minutes as amended. All those in, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I
Carried.
have to recuse myself.
Yes, you do, sir.
Thank you. Just so you know.
Poor George.
So the vote is 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 0, 1. Kelly? With George abstaining. Good. I have no unanticipated. Next meeting date. Meg was saying she'd like something at the end of the month. What are you guys thinking about the end of September? And gals, sorry.
I think the 21st or the 28th.
The pleasure of the board.
I think the 28th, I mean, there's
20
not much going on right now.
There is, there isn't.
So I think the longer, no,
28th?
There was mention that they might have the town meeting in October. Do we have any inkling of
No.
what date they were talking about?
It's going to be a deep, dark secret until the very last second, believe me.
Because we'll have a meeting prior to that too. Right?
yes.
And that's why I'm saying, I don't know how close that's going to end up.
Well, you know what, let's set the meeting for the 28th.
That is a
now.
holiday. I don't know if we
What is?
typically avoid it or not. Yom Kippur, the Jewish holiday.
It's up to you.
It didn't come up on my phone that way.
That's on mine.
Mine.
You want to do it on the 21st? Why don't we do the 21st, and then if something comes up that we need to be sooner or later, then I can always let everybody know. What do you think?
Perfect.
21st is that Monday, right? So let's do the 21st at 7. Yeah, and if there's any changes, I'll let everyone know about it. Then if we do have an October town meeting, we may want to get together just before that. I'm sure there's going to be some budgetary items as well as my guess is a slew of bylaw changes. Rewrite history. The next meeting date is 9/20. Public comment. Anyone? Seeing none. Committee member comments.
I would just like to apologize for missing a couple of meetings, basically because of health and family health reasons.
We're glad you're here.
We missed you.
I'm glad we're here too.
We did miss you.
Just want to let everybody know that I do apologize for that.
No need.
No apologies necessary.
No apology necessary. Anyone else?
I make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
Second, third. Motion to adjourn made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are out.